So next up, we have Mr. Excel, Bill Jelen. For those of you who don't know, Bill Jelen is the host of MrExcel.com and the author of 61 books about Microsoft Excel, including Excel Gurus Gone Wild, Pivot Table, Data Crunching, and Excel 2019 Inside and Out. He's made over 80 guest appearances on TV's Call for Help with Leo Laporte and was voted Guest of the Year on the Computer America radio show. He writes the Excel column for Strategic Finance magazine and has produced over 2,200 episodes of his daily video podcast, Learn Excel from Mr. Excel. Bill will entertain you while showing you the powerful tricks in Excel. And today he's taking a deep dive into the go-to and go-to special dialogues in Excel and is going to reveal some secret powers.
Hey everyone, it's Bill Jelen from Mr. Excel. Today we're going to talk about Excel Go-To Special. Yes, this dialog box and all of the amazing options in there. We'll take a look at visible cells, which is great for formatting the total rows and subtotals or just copying those. Filling in the blank cells in an outline report. We'll take a look at Power Query for that too. Insert a blank row after every second row using the text or numbers, constants or formulas. Notes, current region, current array, dealing with thousands of objects, even when you can't see thousands of objects. Row and column differences, which is the mysterious one. Precedence independence, and then data validation. Let's dive in. Well, let's go back to my very beginning of my relationship with Go-To Special. This must have been around 1998, so we're using Excel 97. And there was a feature there that was relatively new. I mean, pivot tables were already out for sure. And Microsoft and Lotus were still in a battle for market dominance to the extent where, Excel 93, 95, 97 were adding just all kinds of new features. And they added this feature that was great for me because I was constantly downloading an invoice register of all of the invoices for the month and then producing a report. And I started using this new report called the Subtotal Report. At each change in customer, we're going to use the sum function for quantity, revenue, cost of goods sold, and profit. Of course, you can page break between groups. You can even put the subtotals at the top of the data by unchecking summary below data. Click OK. All right, and what that does, as we all know, adds the customer totals in at the very bottom, which is kind of amazing. They add a grand total. That's hard to do. If you were doing this manually, it'd be very hard to do because you'd have to go touch either each individual subtotal row or everything that's not a subtotal row or everything and then divide by 2. So equal sum of the whole thing divided by 2. But it all just works because of the subtotal function, right, which is smart enough to ignore other subtotals in the range. So like that Texaco total right there would not be included in the grand total, and it all just works. And then off to the side here, we get these 3 new buttons called the group and outline buttons. These are added automatically by the subtotal command, and that button right there, the number 2 button, is by far the one that I used all the time because now I have this awesome summary of all the customers, one line, and we could still go back and look at any individual one by using the little plus sign next to it, or we could see them all by pressing the number 3 button, right? So it's just a very, very cool bit of functionality. And so I would come in here, I would set this print range like this, page layout, print area, set print area. Now, I'll admit that I wasn't smart enough back in 1998 to know this next trick. I learned this trick in Springfield, Missouri, many years later when I was doing a seminar there from a fellow named Derek, who works at the local bank in Springfield. It's amazing that if you want to see this data high to low, you can sort the data while it's collapsed in this number 2 view. So here we come here, data, Z to A, and Walmart, the largest customer in this data set, comes to the top, but they don't come to row 2, they come to row 67. And what just happened there is that Excel sorted an entire group of records along with that total. So if we come here and look at the number 3 view. See, they didn't sort the original group by revenue. It stayed in its original sequence, which was by date, but all of those Walmart detail records and the Walmart total got sorted as one chunk and brought up to the top, which is pretty amazing. All right, so we have this report, Control P. I print the report. I give this report to my manager. That manager, by the way, Let's see, in the course of 13 years of this company, I had 12 different managers. This guy was probably the most annoying person in the whole world. And in 1998, secretly, unbeknownst to him, I've already started Mr. Excel, right? So at night, I'm moonlighting as MrExcel.com, and I'm working for this guy during the day. And he comes to me with this printed piece of paper. He's like, this is beautiful. Can you just send me these 27 rows? I don't need all the details. I just want these 27 rows. And so with him standing behind me, I did this, selected the data, Control C to copy, Control N for new, and then pasted. And I was crushed that they didn't paste just the things that we could see. They had pasted everything. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. And the most annoying man in the history of the world is standing behind me, flailing his arms, saying, well, of course it didn't work. You didn't use visible cells only first. I'm like, what are you talking about? All right, so he has me go through these steps. First thing, press Control G. By the way, F5 would also get you here to the go-to dialog box. And I'll have to tell you, I don't use go-to, never use go-to, because I know how to get to the two places on the spreadsheet that I want to go, either home, which is either A1 using Control Home, or the last cell, which is Control N, or Control Shift down arrow, Control Shift up arrow. I can get to everywhere using keyboard shortcuts. I really don't need the go-to dialog box. So I don't know when Microsoft added this amazing button called Special to the lower left-hand corner of the go-to dialog box, but here we are. And he said, yeah, go into this, go to Special, and choose visible cells only. All right. Now, this was all new to me. I had never seen any of the items here in Go To Special. All right, so we're going to do this. Click OK. And boy, it's barely discernible there. You get those little gray borders in between, but it's definitely easier to see once you do the Control C. Now, the marquee or the dancing ants or the marching ants or whatever you call it, Microsoft calls this the marquee, is going around each individual row that we can see. So now I've copied those rows. Control N for new and Control V to paste, and of course it brings it over not as formulas anymore, but as values. Anytime you select a non-contiguous range of data, copy and then paste, you're going to get formulas from that paste just automatically. All right, so there we are. The world's most annoying man in the world is talking to me, who naively is calling myself Mr. Excel, showing me this thing that I've never seen before. I turned around to him. I said, where did you learn that? He says, oh, I was reading an Excel help. I'm like, what? Who reads Excel help? But that was my first foray into the amazing Go-To Special dialog box. Now today, of course, it's been promoted. You no longer have to go through the Go-To dialog box. Out here under Home, Find and Select, they've now brought Go-To Special. But in the next section, it's funny, they've actually brought several of the items from Go-To Special right into this little flyout menu. Formulas, notes, conditional formatting, constants, and data validation are all available without opening Go-To Special. And in fact, even Go-To Special Visible Cells Only has a shortcut. Let's see, that was in 1998. So it was about 2 years later that I left that company, or actually they left me. They were moving out of town, and I was supposed to move with them. We had actually gone and looked at houses. But it became pretty clear that the people who were moving us were planning on selling the company. And the human resources people sent me a note saying, hey, we're closing the facility. The federal government requires us to send you this letter, the Warren letter. And, we're offering everyone a buyout, right? You've been here for 13 years. We'll give you 26 weeks pay. And by then, I'd been running Mr. Excel for 2 years. There was enough traffic coming in. I said, well, let me give this 6 months and see if we can make a go of this. The funny thing about making the move from working in a corporate environment to working out of my house, well, first off, the cafeteria at home was always homemade food, right? But the worst part about it was there was just no one to talk to. Mrs. Excel was a nurse, so she was gone during the day. You had no one to talk about last night's game, the whole bit. All right, so I joined in my tiny little town. There was 185 people in the Chamber of Commerce. So I joined the Chamber of Commerce, which basically meant that there were 184 other people who had no friends to talk to. And they would have networking breakfasts, and at least once a week you could get out and see other people, which was great. And then one day I get a call from the lady at the Chamber of Commerce. She says, "Hey, we're in trouble. We have a Lunchbox Seminar this Thursday, and our speaker just canceled. Are you in town? And can you come talk for an hour?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." I said, "What were they going to talk about?" "It was going to be reverse mortgages, but no one cares what they're talking about. They're really just coming for lunch." I said, "Oh, great. I'll go show some Excel tips." So she gives me the address. I pull up to the place, and I realize that I am at the Portage Lake Senior Center, right? And just picture this audience. These are people who don't have a job, right? They're free, and they know that they can get a free lunch on the first Thursday of the month by showing up here for their Lunchbox Seminar. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what a horrible crowd this is going to be. Like they're going to have no interest in Excel, right? But I need to talk for an hour. Let's try and keep people awake. Usually when I start a seminar, I always give this little spiel about, look, I know someone in this room is going to know some Excel trick that I've never seen before, so don't be shy. Feel free to show me up. I always had a little prize for the people that give me new tips, and you would always get new tips, right? But here at the Portage Lake Senior Center, I just couldn't imagine that any of these people were going to have some tip, right? So I just went through and showed this trick right here, the trick that I just showed you with the home or Control G special. Visible cells only, right? And a lady, I still can picture this lady right in the front row. She had to be in her 80s. She's angry with me. She's like, "Why are you wasting all those steps? You could have just pressed Alt semicolon." I'm like, "What? Alt semicolon?" She's angry with me. Like, how could I have never heard of this trick? "We do it all the time," she says. I'm like, whoa. And I'm thinking to myself, you do it all the time? Where? At Bridge Club? Like, where are you that you're using Alt semicolon? But it turns out that the shortcut key for go to, special, visible cells only is pressing Alt semicolon. So you select this data right here, Alt semicolon, you can see the little gray bars show up, and when we copy, it's automatically selected like that, right? I'm like, wow, how did anyone ever discover Alt semicolon? Because clearly it's not here. Like there's nothing here that tells you that there's a shortcut key, but it turns out that there's shortcut keys for a lot of these. And later, I realized that the way that people discovered that shortcut key is the people that use select visible cells frequently, they'll come up here to the quick access toolbar, right click, customize quick access toolbar, and they'll go down into the S's, right? Now it's not here in the popular commands. You have to either switch to commands, or all commands, I guess would be the best way to get here. Allow that to populate. There's 2,500 of them, and it's under S for select visible cells. Right there, select visible cells. Click add to add it to the quick access toolbar. You see that I already have it there. But once it's on your quick access toolbar, then you can see up here in the tooltip, select visible cells and that shortcut of Alt semicolon, right? What an amazing little way, I guess, to discover that there is a shortcut. All right, so there you go. Now let's talk about one more use for visible cells. Sometimes I'll run into people in my seminars who say that they use this feature, the subtotals feature, but their manager is upset that they are bolding only column E, but not bolding the rest of the row, and they'd like to bold the rest of the row. And they often have tried to do that. So you select these cells right here, Control-Shift right, Control-Shift down, and bold. All right, but unfortunately, that doesn't do what we want it to do, because everything after that Walmart total, the things above the Walmart total aren't bold, but starting from the Walmart total all the way down, we've effectively bolded everything else. I'll undo. All right, so the whole trick to formatting those total rows and nothing else is to select from the Walmart total, Control-Shift right, Control-Shift down to the grand total, and then press Alt semicolon to select visible cells. And now that we have that selected, the first Control-B unbolds column E, but then bolds everything else. And I like to add a little bit of color, just a nice light orange or green or something like that. And then when we go back to the number 3 view, you'll be able to see that we have the subtotal rows bolded like that, right? Which I think is the better way to go. All right, so there we go. That's how I first became aware of Go To Special, and in particular the visible cells only. Now, since we're going to be using Go To Special a lot in this session, let's add it to the Quick Access toolbar. For me, I still use Control G, Alt S, which is not something that I would expect anyone to try and learn. Control G opens Go To, Alt S opens Special. That's not the best way to go. So we come here to Home, and then Find and Select, and then Go To Special. I'm not going to left click that. Instead, I'm going to right click and say Add to Quick Access Toolbar. And you'll notice that here there's no little icon next to Go To Special, which is really frustrating because then they have no icon to add to the Quick Access Toolbar, and we get this stupid little circle, right? And once you get a bunch of icons that are the stupid little circle, it's a little annoying, right? Because you have to hover to figure out which one it is. I can right click and say Show Quick Access Toolbar below the ribbon, which then gives us words next to each of the little icons, right? So that's better, I guess, although it's really far out of my field of view. Customize Quick Access Toolbar, and I can take Go To Special and move it up like that. Right. And now, I could start to use Alt 1 for Go To Special, Alt 1. Although it's the one above the keys, so for me, above the Q, the Alt 1 over on the number keypad is giving me a smiley face for some weird reason. That doesn't really surprise me. I knew that I could type a bullet point with Alt and 7 on the numeric keypad. I'm sure each of those keys must be assigned to something. I'm not going to take the time to figure that out right now. All right, so we have Go To Special is now up here on the Quick Access Toolbar and will be easier to use. All right, take a look at this data here. I used to get data like this all the time. Mine was coming from a COBOL programmer who would design the report, but today you could get this easily using a pivot table and not turning on the repeat all rows setting, right? And then you end up with something that looks a little bit like this. I hate this outline view, right? Of course, everyone who's reading this can tell that all of these cells refer to communications. But later on, if we're going to sort this data, you need all of these cells to say communications. And wow, it's super tempting to come in here and grab the fill handle and drag down, but you're going to do that on every single item. And eventually I'm going to run into a problem over here because I have a custom list with East, Central, and West. And when I drag East down, I'm going to get Central, right? It's just not going to work, which means I'm going to have to select the range and Control D to fill. Select the range and Control D to fill. Select the range, Control D to fill. It's going to be super monotonous to keep pressing Control D all the time to fill down. All right, not fun at all. Now let's undo all of those fills. Okay, so the amazing, awesome trick here to fix this. Of course, today you might consider Power Query, which has the fill down command, which would fill all of those empty cells very quickly. But because we're talking about Go To Special today, my trick for this is to go to those three columns where I want to fill in all the blanks, and I start at the top and I select down to the bottom of the data set. So that's Control Shift page down a bunch of times. So I get down to the bottom. And now at this point, I'd like to see the top. So Control Backspace brings the active cell back into view. We'll use Go To Special. And this time, instead of visible cells only, we're going to go to blanks. Go To Special blanks. And then click OK. And what that has done is it's selected all of the blank cells. Now, in some weird set of rules here, I'm getting C5 as the active cell instead of A5. So from here, it's 3 keystrokes to fill in all of the blanks. And I started using spreadsheets back in the days of Lotus 1-2-3 when we didn't have the mouse, right? And I'm one of those people who still builds my formulas using the arrow keys. So for me, this would be type the equal sign, press the up arrow key so I could point to east above me. If that seems completely foreign to you, then you kind of have to look and say, well, I'm in C5 and I want to build a formula of equals C4, and so I'm going to type equals C4. Now for me, equal sign up arrow. And I actually like my method because I don't have to know that that's building C4. I just do equal sign up arrow. Those are the two keystrokes. And then the third keystroke, the most important one, is not to just press enter to accept that, but to press control enter. Control enter is an amazing keystroke that fills the formula that you just typed into all of the cells of the selection. And of course, it doesn't say equals C4. It's in essence doing the R1C1 version of the formula, which is saying grab the cell in the row just above me. So I press Control Enter, and you see that very quickly it fills in all of the blank cells all of the way down like that. All right, now we have to copy and paste as values before we do any sorting. And unfortunately, you can't copy and paste values in this format here. If it's non-contiguous cells, when I try and do the Control C, this action won't work on multiple selections. So we just reselect everything like this, Control C to copy, and then paste values like that. You see, I actually have that icon on my quick access toolbar. So we could have undone here, back to the formulas. Yep, select the three, copy, and then for me, paste values, and very quickly have that done. Right. So there's our using go-to special and blanks in order to fill in those empty cells along the left-hand side. Hey, while we're here, let's just talk about the new, faster way to do that, and that's with Power Query. I'll make a copy of this sheet over here, and we'll make it into a table with Control T. Click OK, and of course they call that Table 1. I'm just going to call it Fill Example. And then Data from Table or Range. And we'll choose these three columns, and then under Transform, Fill Down. Very quickly fills in all of that data. Home, close and load, and we now have a second sheet that has filled in that data. For some people, that might be easier than using go-to special. Although, you certainly have to be aware that the original data is still sitting back here, and you've essentially just made a copy of that data. My next example is a question that came in via my YouTube channel just about a month ago. Someone said, how can I insert a blank row after every two rows? And we can have a lot of discussions about why that's a horribly bad idea, right? I don't know what his situation is, what manager he's working for, that he has to do that. But let's just accept the fact that he has to do that. He has 4,000 rows of data and 5 columns, right? And my immediate reaction here is, well, first off, I know we can do this with VBA. We could do this with Power Query. We could do this with an amazing formula, right? But my reaction is go-to special. Because I know that there's 2 different sections here in go-to special that allow me to isolate cells that are numbers, text, logicals, or errors. And I can either look for formula cells that are one or more of those, or constant cells that are one or more of those, right? And so my set of steps was just put in any text. A is really easy. Put in any number. 1 is really easy. And then just an equal sign and point up 2 rows. All right? So what that's going to do, when I double click to copy that down, it will create an alternating pattern where we have text, numbers, text, numbers, text, numbers. And what I want to do is select just the text cells from that list, right? So go to special. We choose the formulas in this case, and we only want text. So I'm going to uncheck numbers, logical, and errors, and click OK. And you see that we very quickly have selected every other row. And then from here, for me, I would do Alt-I-R, but it's also Home, Insert, Insert Sheet Rows, like that. Now, it takes a while, right? You actually kind of think that Excel is locking up there. But what it's literally doing is inserting 2,000 individual rows, which would take quite some time to do it manually. I actually estimated like a 45-minute process if you're really fast and you use the F4 key to repeat. So the fact that we had a little spinny circle there for 9 or 10 seconds, wasn't that bad. Although just be aware that there's going to be a spinny circle there for some time. Now the great thing about going out and putting a video on YouTube is that the people who watch YouTube will come up with a lot of different ways to solve the problem. That's how I got the Power Query and the VBA and the formulas. But the one thing that I thought was really interesting is several people said, look, there's an easier way to do this. You don't have to put in the A and the 1 and then the formula to copy everything down. Just put in the 1, right, on that cell, and then select 2 cells. So we've selected a 1 and a blank cell, and then double click, and it automatically advances the 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but we don't actually care that it's done that. We're going to go into Go To Special. This time choose constants, and we want the constants that are numbers. Click OK. In fact, what we actually have there are constants and blanks. Let's undo that. So I go back, and I'm actually going to go down 1 cell. Select 2 cells like that. Double click to copy it down. And then Go To Special, just choose constants, and that should avoid the blanks. Yes, right? Saves an extra keystroke there. Actually 3 keystrokes to not have to uncheck text, logicals, and errors. And we get the exact same thing. And then Alt-I-R to insert a row. And again, the spinny circle for a little bit of time. All right, so 2 different solutions there using Go To Special. The first one using formulas. The first one using formulas to isolate the text. The second one using constants to isolate, actually, this graphic is wrong, just using constants to find all of the constants. And then, of course, in both of these, we no longer need column F anymore. We just simply click delete, and we're done, like that. All right, let's talk about the ones on the left side that we haven't talked about yet. Notes, the current region, current array. And there's a couple of points here in this section that make me think that Go To Special is no longer a fan favorite on the Excel team. And you'll see what I mean here. That we have 2 different ways back here on the Review tab to leave comments or notes. Notes originally debuted, back in Excel 97. They were there for a little bit, then renamed as comments, and then just about a year ago, renamed back to notes. Notes are the red triangles. So let's see, we'll add a note here. Under notes, new note. It's generally the little yellow sticky note. You can type some stuff. If you type a lot of stuff, you can resize the note. You can use the old Dave Holly trick to change the shape of the note. All kinds of things that we can do with these notes. Change the color of the note. We can make them always appear. They were pretty cool, but it was just 1 note per cell, right? And then when they renamed comments to be notes, they introduced these new threaded comments that are in theory better because you can have multiple comments in a conversation. You can mention someone in the comments. There's all kinds of reasons why comments are better than notes, but notes still do some amazing things. Okay, but anyway, so we have notes and we have comments. And under Go To Special, the very first option is that we can select all of the notes. So here we'll show all notes and then hide all notes. There we are. So I've selected this, and we go to Go To Special, select Notes, and click OK. And what we'll see is it selected the 3 cells that have the red triangle. But it did not select the cells with the purple indicator that there is a threaded comment. What does that mean? Does that mean that the people who created the comments couldn't take the time to update Go To Special? Does that mean the Go To Special is not long for this world? I don't know. I'm not sure how to read into that. All right. So, but if you have some reason that you need to be able to see all of the notes, the old-fashioned notes, you can still do that. By the way, just had nothing to do with Go To Special, but a cool trick nonetheless. Page layout, print area, set print area. If you go into page setup, there is an option back here on the sheet tab for comments and notes. Instead of none, you can say at the end of the sheet. We'll click OK. And now when we do Control P to print, there's our first page, which just has the data. But then on the second page, it gives you each individual item. So cell C7, there's a note. Cell C8, new threaded comment. It shows the date and time and the whole bit. Now, for this, the only problem is back here on page 1, no one can tell which cell is cell C7. So we will go back here into page setup. And if you're going to use that, you should probably use the row and column headings. Then when we print preview, so now we can see cell C7 is that cell. And on the next page, you'll get a list of all of those. Just kind of a cool, if someone's using a lot of comments or notes, just a cool alternative there. All right, by the way, a faster keyboard shortcut is Control-Shift-O, and just like the others, Control-Shift-O will only get the red. Control-Shift-O will only get the notes, doesn't get the comments. Haven't found any way to select all comment cells yet. All right, this next one. This is a funny one to me, that this is even in GoTo Special. It's called Current Region. Current Region. Of course, you all know the current region goes in all directions until it reaches the edge of the spreadsheet or a completely blank row or column. Right? So here, Control Asterisk will select the current region. Well, it turns out that if you can't remember Control Asterisk, you can go to GoTo Special and then ask for the current region like that. Right? You have to watch out for inadvertent connectors. So like right now, current region will get those cells or these cells. But if you accidentally come here and just, hey, I need to remind myself to get milk at the grocery store and take it home, and then Control Asterisk, see, that becomes a connector that connects this to that. All right. Now, you can also use Control A. I'm a fan of Control A. And in a regular range like this, Control A and Control Asterisk does the same thing. But over here, Control Asterisk will get the entire table, but Control A behaves differently. The first press of Control A selects the data rows, excluding the total row and excluding the headings. Second press of Control A does the entire table with the headings and the total row. And then Control A again will go out and select the entire spreadsheet. All right, so it's just kind of interesting there, those various differences. Control Asterisk will never extend to the entire spreadsheet. It's just the current region, and that's it. So a couple of different changes there. Again, the point here, to me, it's interesting, that they took the time to put current region in. Was there a day where Control Asterisk didn't work? I'm not really sure. Okay, and then next up, here's another one that's really funny to me. This works the way that it works, and that's called GoTo Special, the current array, which it turns out the shortcut is Control/, just a regular slash, a forward slash, the one next to the question mark on the US keyboard. But this only works for arrays that are entered using Control-Shift-Enter. So you see the array operators there around the whole thing. So we go to GoTo Special and choose Current Array, click OK. That works fine. But here, this is a dynamic array, and if I'm either in the top left corner cell or this cell, I press Control/, it doesn't do anything, no cells were found. GoTo Special, Current Array, still no cells were found, right? So now this is two, right here in this one little section. So far 7 minutes of talking about some GoTo Special, where GoTo Special, the dialog is not being updated. First for comments and then for dynamic arrays. Makes you wonder if the Excel team's just kind of forgotten about GoTo Special. Here I have a dynamic array that's in N5, and my selection process, if I wanted to select the whole thing, would be to press Control-G for GoTo and then type N5, but add in the end the hash, the N5. The hash is the array indicator, and that will select the whole extent of that array that starts in N5. All right, so there we go, going down kind of the left-hand side. Now I have a great story to tell you about objects, which is the last item in GoTo Special. So let's go take a look at that client story, and we'll talk about the objects. Next up, let's talk about go-to special objects. I have a great story to tell you about this. I had a client near me when I still lived up in Ohio, and they had a tiny little spreadsheet, one page with exactly 3 graphics on it, right? And they called me one day. They said, "Well, we can't believe this. It takes us forever to scroll just a couple of lines. Like every scroll is taking an enormous amount of time." And I said, that doesn't sound right at all, right? So I came down, and there were 3 graphics, right? And so you wouldn't think that would be a problem. But these folks had every day, as part of their workflow, made a copy, right? So they selected the whole thing, Control-C, and then paste Control-V. And of course, that doesn't hurt this cell, right? Taking cell F2 that used to have some data and pasting the exact same data doesn't increase the size. But every single paste was adding 3 more graphics to the page, right? And it wasn't until I realized that these graphics, which were right on top of each other, were there like 1,500 times, that was the problem, right? And this is so funny. This paste, I think I just inadvertently pasted 6,080 graphics. So it's making copies of these over and over and over again. Let's see. There we are. Good. Okay. Yeah. See, just scrolling, right? Because Excel, I don't want to say that Excel is stupid, but Excel is trying to draw all of those graphics that are sitting there in A8. There's probably, 1,000 of them. Not there. Well, if there's 12,000 total, and I think there's only a couple hundred lines of data in here. I'm going to press Control down arrow to see. Yeah, see, it's just so frustrating to use this, right? I can't even click on a cell. All right, so here's the beautiful thing. Under Home, Find and Select, the very last thing is called a selection pane, right? And over here, then you can see all of the items, and all we have to do once that blue spinny circle goes away is click Hide All. Hide All. Which hides all of those little dollar signs, and now instantly the thing is super snappy. So Control down arrow, you can see there's 176 rows. Control up, Control right, Control down, Control left. Having those thousands of graphics in there is what caused the problem. Okay, so we're going to select the extent of the spreadsheet, which is 2,816 cells. I don't think it'll work right here. If we do Home, Find and Select, I'm going to avoid Select Objects right now. Go to Special and select all of the objects. Okay, so even though they're hidden, apparently what's happening right now is it's selecting all of those hidden objects. And I've selected them all. I'm going to press the delete key. And now they're going to go through and delete those 12,160 graphic objects. With my client's worksheet, I had to be a little bit more careful than this. I had to select most of them, but not the 3 that we actually wanted. All right, there we go. So now we can show all. There are no objects, and of course it's very, very, very fast, right? So a case where the selection pane and then go to special objects is a great way to go. I'm going to bring one object back. Hang on. Okay, so you can see there's an object right there. We'll just make a couple of copies of this, like this. Lots of times the things that are in Go To Special are also here in Find and Select. Select Objects is a little bit different. You have to be able to draw, a rectangle around all the objects. So to get rid of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I just have to draw a box like that. That will select them, and then we can delete them. So if you just have a few, by all means, try the select objects. And also, you have to be careful. See, I'm still in select object mode. I can't click in any cells right now. a little annoying. You have to press the escape key in order to get out of that. Back to the regular item. That's funny. Hang on, let me do it again. Find and select objects. So now I'm in select object mode. There's no objects there. Still in select object mode. Does escape really work? Yes. Okay, the escape key works. All right, so there we go. That's the select objects piece of Go-To Special. But the selection pane, lots of times you won't be able to tell that you have hundreds of objects stacked up on top of each other until you go into Find and Select and show the selection pane. It can just be a lifesaver sometimes. Anytime that I learn a trick from Bob Umliss, you know that it's a weird, obscure trick, right? If Bob Umliss is the only guy who knows how it works, you know that you're on the edges of Excel. And one day, he said, does anyone actually know how row differences and column differences works in Go-To Special? So take a look at this data. We have the original data, then they're answered in week 2, week 3, week 4, and we want to see only the cells that changed from the original week, right? So I'm going to select here, then Go-To Special, and ask for the row differences. So that means looking across each row, where did it change in the row? So you see that this person, Andy, had 4, but then changed to 6. So anytime that data to the right is not equal to the original column on the left, on a row by row basis, they highlight that data. So here we had 5, 5, 5, 5. When it changed to 6, when it changed to 7. And the fact that it changed, it didn't change from 7 to 7, doesn't matter. It's not the same as it was in the original data. All right. And we'll even do one, let's have it go back to 2. So here we have 2, it changed to 3, stayed at 3, went back to 2. You should see that 2 does not get highlighted in Go-To Special for row differences. All right, so those 3s are different, but the 2 is back to the original value. Never found anyone that ever had a use for that, but there it is. And then this one, column differences. So again, it's starting from that week 1 data. Did it change in week 2 or week 3 or week 4? Go-To Special, column differences, click OK. And you see that there, Andy changed from 4 to 6, Ed changed from 5 to 6 to 7. And it doesn't matter that he stayed at 7. That 7 is not the original answer of 5, and it'll be marked by Go-To Special all the way down. Here's a workbook that I use when I talk about formula auditing. The first thing I would always do is I would go into Go-To Special and choose formulas like that, and that would highlight all the formula cells. These are the formulas that I actually need to audit. But it's so much easier than that now because we have under Home, Find and Select. There's now just formulas, right? We can just choose formulas and just a quick way to do that. All right, so there's a use for formulas, but I want to talk about precedence here. Back on the Formulas tab, we have 2 commands. Trace precedence. So here's a big formula that refers to a lot of cells. If I choose trace precedence, you can see that cell, that cell, that cell, that cell, that, and at least one precedent on another sheet are flowing into this formula. You can ask for trace precedence again and get the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th levels. Remove arrows. Here's a rent number. If I change that rent number, what cells are going to change? Well, the dependents, 1, 2, 3 of them, plus dependent on another sheet. But then there's multiple levels of dependence like that, right? So if instead of those arrows, you wanted to use Go-To Special, choose Go-To Special and then ask for the precedence. And direct only will just be the first level precedence. So it selects all of those cells. Let's change the color there. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If instead I would start here from this big formula, Go-To Special and ask for precedence, all levels, click OK. All right, you can see that is a lot more cells that are flowing into that one cell. Now going the other way, starting here from this rent number, Go-To Special, the dependents, the direct only, so the first level dependents, there should be 1, 2, 3 of those. 1, 2, 3. The dependent on the other sheet, of course, is not being highlighted. And then if we would ask for, again, from this rent number, Go-To Special, the dependents, all levels, click OK. That is a lot more cells that will change if that rent number changes. Okay, last cell. This is one that we already have a great keyboard shortcut for. That's Control End. Will take you to the last cell in the spreadsheet. So up there from A1, Control End takes me there. Control Home takes me to the first cell in the spreadsheet. So I don't know why we really need the last cell, right? So we choose Go To Special, last cell, click OK, and it jumps down to the last cell. And it's, it's in this case, it's very obvious that's the last cell. But here, I have the same data, but I type something here out in O1, and I type something here in A30. Now, there's nothing out here in O30, but because our spreadsheet goes all the way down to row 30 and all the way out to column O, when we ask for Go To Special last cell, it's going to jump there to the intersection of the last active row and the last active column. Sometimes people will inadvertently, from this last cell, control down arrow, and they'll type something. They'll just type, oh shoot, right? And then even though they delete it, well, I've just activated that part of the spreadsheet. So Control End will now take me down to column O and row 1048576. When this happens to you, you need to delete those columns. You need to delete those rows. But that doesn't solve your problem. The last cell, Control End, will still take you down there until you save. As soon as you save, though, Control S, and now Control End is correct again. So under Go To Special, last cell, if it's going way below your data, delete those rows, delete those columns, and then make sure to save. It's the save that actually forces it to recalculate the last cell. Okay, conditional formatting. Easy to apply. Home. Conditional formatting, we'll add color scales. All right, so there's a color scale here. We'll add data bars. All right, and to get all of the cells with conditional formatting. So if I choose one cell that has conditional formatting and I go into Go To Special, Conditional Formatting, see, it defaults to all, which will choose all of the cells in the spreadsheet, those cells and those cells. I think really what we'd want to do is instead choose one cell that has the conditional formatting that we want, Go To Special Conditional Formatting, the same. So just the cells that have the same conditional formatting, or down here, Go To Special Conditional Formatting, just the cells that have the same, and we get that whole group. How is this different than going into Manage Rules? You have that applies to. I guess you can come in here and see the little marching ants or the marquee that shows you what it applies to. But I think that in this case, I actually like Go To Special a little bit better. All right, our last group here is data validation. And again, all are same, similar to what we had in conditional formatting. So here we have a whole number validation. That says between 1 and 5. All right, so if we choose one cell that has that validation, go into Go To Special, ask for validation. All will tell us all the cells that have validation. So we want to look for same, everything that has the same rule. Click OK. And this is actually interesting that someone here took a 7 that didn't have data validation, copied it, and pasted it, which is one of the reasons why data validation isn't the most robust thing in the world. And here we have a list, so Go To Special, ask for all the data validation that is the same. Click OK, and you can see there that Gala Apple, which is not in our list. They managed to get that in through some method, either a copy or a paste or whatever. All right, so the last couple of items there, might be most helpful for finding the things that should have data validation applied, but don't. Where did someone break your data validation? Oh, hey, there you go. Thanks for watching. This far. When Liam announced the conference, I said, let's do something I've never done before. And I wondered if I could talk about Go To Special. Lots of great options in there. Hopefully you'll learn a few things along the way. Visible cells, blanks, text, numbers, notes, current region, current array, objects, row and column differences. Thanks, Bob Umlis. Precedence, independence, and then data validation. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the rest of the session.
So if you'd like to use the QR code or the bit.ly link underneath and leave any comments for Bill's session. I think Bill's had a bit of an issue with the chat. If he comes back in, I'll let you know.